Welcome back to the post-show Spoilercast for Tempo Control. It's episode 6. We're going to talk Killer Instinct Season 2, I guess technically also mixing in Season 1. And hey, Season 3 is now out, so I guess we'll talk about that. It's a fighting game. You can't really spoil too much, right? I'm Peter Spezia, host of Tempo Control, joined by Luke Rizik, known as Cyberlink 420. Welcome.
Supreme victory.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I've been getting in a lot of KI time over the last day or two, so I'm content.
Well, you are the biggest Killer Instinct fan I know. And so when we get to this point, and we generally try to plan some of these episodes around the big releases of games that are coming out, especially here in 2016. And Killer Instinct Season 3 that's like right on the slot for this week. And so, Killer Instinct has a pretty amazing soundtrack, so we figured, yeah, that's perfect. We'll get it right there. Now, I picked up, I think I had Season 1 Ultra from a Games with Gold promotion.
Yep.
And then there was a deal where they did like 50% off Season 2 Ultra, or maybe it's even 75%. So I have up through Season 2 Ultra, but I haven't really played Killer Instinct. No one else on our team has played Killer Instinct. I'm like, all right, we need help. So I'll get Luke, and you really came through in a big way, so I really can't thank you enough.
I'm just amazed that we managed to get it done, considering I was out of town that entire week.
And that was a big challenge. I mean, we had talked about on past episodes here where it's like, I think, that Killer Instinct episode, that'll be the first time we get a guest on the whole episode, and we see how that works, but it's like, oh, well, I'm traveling, you are traveling, I don't think we can make this work with video. And you're even going through some audio issues at the moment, too.
Yeah, my microphone is refusing to basically acknowledge my computer's existence. So, I'm making do with a webcam mic, but you make sacrifices.
I know the feeling when I was out in Utah and had to use the internal MacBook microphone, and that was not pleasant. So I know the feeling.
See, when that happens to me, it's usually by accident. And then I have to do the whole take all over again.
Oh,
I'm just left very upset.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll talk about some of the behind-the-scenes things because you helped write the script and a lot of the trivia and whatnot. But let's get right into it. You helped us out with what Killer Instinct means to you. And so we've kind of gone over that. I just wondered if there are any other thoughts on that you may have not have included in the episode itself, and then we can get into talking about just general Killer Instinct, the lore, some of the characters, who are your favorites, and then we can get into Season 3 that you've been playing for the last couple days.
Yeah, sure. So, I think I pretty much said all I needed to in that very long kind of rambly rant I did for the episode. I don't know what it is about KI, but there's just something about it that has appealed to me basically since shortly after its announcement. I was kind of sour on it when it first was announced because, it's not being made by Rare. It's Double Helix, which, yeah, they did not have a good track record going into this. And then the whole free-to-play thing, it just, a lot of stuff came off the wrong way about this game. But over the months leading up to its launch, it really, won me over, with the soundtrack being a big part of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really happy with where the game is at now and all of the changes that they've made over the last 2.5 years. God,
yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it really makes you think, and I think that was a good point you brought up, is that, we're talking launch of Xbox One, which already had its problems to begin with. I mean, with all of the changed policies, and you had the changing leadership. But from that launch lineup, you could easily make the argument that it's the best game. It certainly lasted the longest. And
Absolutely.
You can say what you will about Microsoft throwing money behind it to get it into EVO, where it may or may not, be able to get in on its own merit, but it deserves to be there. It's had the longevity of these updates, and you're absolutely right. It's a passion project for these developers, and with a lot of fan support. So it's really something to be admired for that.
Yeah, the fan support is one of the biggest things that I think is responsible for this game being as good as it is, because the fan base has been a constant presence throughout the game's development cycle, constantly, giving feedback to the developers and saying, I like this, this doesn't work for me, this is kind of breaking the game, needs to be changed, that sort of thing. And they have responded in droves supporting the game right from the get-go. Like, are you familiar with the community fund effort they did last year?
No, I'm not.
Basically, Microsoft and Iron Galaxy wanted to raise money to basically increase the prize pool for several major Killer Instinct tournaments, EVO, the Killer Instinct World Cup, stuff like that. So they held a basically like a fundraiser of sorts where they put out a special bundle that had a bunch of in-game currency and an unlock for Shadow Jago, the very limited like character release, and said, "Hey guys, buy this bundle. This is going to be our incentive, and then every other like purchase made for the game over the next like 2 weeks will go towards this fundraiser. We're shooting for 50,000. If we make 100,000." Not only will we put all that back into the community fund and all the tournaments, but we will take this Shadow Jago character that's basically just a skin, and we will give him his own unique moveset like the unplayable boss version, and release him as like a download for everybody who has that skin. And they hit that 100,000 in like a couple of days.
Wow. Yeah, I've
true
seen
to their
that
word,
download,
like,
so yeah.
Yeah, true to their word. Like that, they made that character into a real boy, as they put it, and they put all that money back into the tournament, and it was wildly successful. Like, no joke, there is a Killer Instinct con being planned for next year using some of that money.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it really shows you the good that the fighting game community can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Killer Instinct has earned its place with the other major fighting game releases of the last couple of years. Like, compared to Street Fighter V, which has kind of had an iffy launch, Killer Instinct is kind of sitting pretty at the moment, just with all of the kind of bad blood that I think Capcom has kind of brought with kind of the rough launch of that game, the slow response to add new features over the last month and stuff like that. And then Killer Instinct, with that PC release, is kind of bringing in a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise given it a shot because of the Xbox One exclusivity. So that's really cool to watch.
That's true. And then you could also make the argument that the one game/company that would be accused of money hatting at this year's EVO would be Nintendo and Pokken. So
I guess so.
Now, as far as the actual game goes, are there any particular characters that you enjoy playing?
I do play a lot of Jago just because he is kind of the base archetype character, very similar to, say, a Ryu or a Ken in his moveset, you know, your uppercuts, your fireballs, that sort of thing. So he's definitely, like, if somebody's coming into Killer Instinct knowing absolutely nothing, he's the one you want to start with. I've been playing a lot with the Season 3 characters over the last day or so. I really like Rash and Arbiter a lot. Like, it's very clear that they put a lot of effort into making them feel like their source games, and it really comes through. Like, they feel like characters that are pretty accessible to newcomers, but if you're willing to put in the time, there's a lot you can do with them. Like, Arbiter's gameplay style carries over a lot of elements from Halo. Like, his instinct mode is to get an overshield that stops him from being like staggered by projectiles, very similar to Halo. It's got like even the same health bar with the little shield meter above the health meter. And then same thing as the Halo games, LB to throw a grenade, right trigger to fire your gun. Just little details like that really go a long way.
It's almost like Sakurai levels of detail.
Yeah, no kidding. And aside from those, I want to try and learn a little bit more Hisako, the ghost girl, just because that's such a bizarre kind of character, and I'd really like to try and practice a little bit more. I want to try and get better with TJ Combo. I'd like to maybe practice a bit more with Fulgore, who's kind of teetering the line between easy to get into and a little more advanced because of his meter management mechanics. That's the nice thing about KI is that everybody is so wildly different from one another. Everybody's got their own kind of underlying mechanics that are completely unique to them. So odds are you'll probably find somebody that, you know, kind of appeals to you and that you'll latch on to and maybe pick up as a main.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you make the comparison between Jago and Ryu, because with the, you know, talking about the lore, I guess, it doesn't seem to be, at least from doing, you know, research as a very early beginner, it doesn't seem to be a fighting game that is really driven by its story. Of course, there is story and there is lore in the same way that you could say there is for Street Fighter, but it's more the mechanics, it's more the fighting action, it's all that. But then isn't there like some sort of backstory where I guess Jago has the remnants of the spirit Gargos in him, and like that's where Shadow Jago comes from? And what's the deal with that?
Yeah, in Jago's case specifically, he was like abandoned at the Temple of the Monks of the Tiger and kind of raised from birth. And after going on like a meditation, he gets visited by the supposed tiger spirit that the monks worship, and it possesses him and has him enter the first Killer Instinct tournament to put it into Ultratech's evil or whatever. And at the very end of the tournament, Jago finds out, psych, the tiger spirit was actually Gargos, this ancient evil, all along, trying to use him as his host body to escape into the mortal realm, which was something they kind of carried over from Killer Instinct 2. Like, the Xbox One game is a reboot, but they carry over a lot of similar plot elements so that there's, a slight level of familiarity. So Jago gets corrupted. He becomes the host for Gargos' Herald Omen for a while, and that's what Shadow Jago is. And then eventually he just kind of, his will overpowers Omen, forces him out, but Omen manages to gain a corporeal form from all the time he spent in Jago's body, so that's how he's playable.
Right.
And then now they're just sort of setting up this whole confrontation with Gargos, who's being brought to Earth by Arya, the AI CEO of Ultratech, who's trying to force humanity to evolve by bringing in these basically other dimensional demons and basically saying, if you don't like push yourself to the brink, you're going to all die to these horrible things. Yeah. So get cracking on that.
So yeah, I mean, the point stands then, I guess, that Jago is a very central character to KI's story, whereas Ryu is the same with Street Fighter. So
yeah, Jago is one of the more central characters. Orchid's pretty high up there. Maya's pretty high up there. Honestly, a lot of the characters end up playing a pretty substantial role in the overall narrative in some form or another. Like, there's only a couple characters that really don't have anything to do with either the setup for how things got to where they are or with, how things are going to develop in Season 3. They do have, like, a sort of story mode. It's not dissimilar to, like, a BlazBlue style arcade mode. Not as deep as their stories, but they do have, the occasional cutscene and like interconnected stories and stuff like that. So it is there, but it's not as heavy a focus.
Right. Now, as far as Season 3 goes, correct me if I'm wrong, they haven't really reached the 8-character mark yet? And
they have said there are going to be 8 characters, right, same as the last 2 seasons. I would not be surprised if there's a bonus character at some point, because Season 1 had their bonus with Shadow Jago. Season 2 had their bonus with Omen. And they've kind of talked about maybe we might do another community fund to raise money to get a third Shadow-type character.
Right.
But so far, Season 3, 8 characters, including guests for the first time. So Rash from Battletoads, Arbiter from Halo are the first 2. And they haven't officially confirmed this, but it's basically come out that the third guest character is going to be General Ram from the first Gears of War.
And that's kind of where I wanted to get to, because I know my brother personally has a history with that boss fight in Gears of War. And it's famous for being very difficult. And you can kind of see Rash with, there's the rare connection there with Battletoads. The choice of Arbiter was an interesting one, like when that trailer was coming out. And I guess, a shame that they couldn't have Keith David be the voice.
Yeah, like their excuse for that is that it's technically not the same Arbiter as Keith David. It's just like an amalgam of Arbiters, kind of like the Spartan they had in that Dead or Alive game for Xbox.
Right. Yeah, but you hear the voice in the trailer. It's like, it's close, but it's not the same.
It's a valiant effort, but Keith David is irreplaceable when you get down to it.
But Ram should be an interesting one, just to see how he plays. But that's the thing, the game's out, and do they have 6 at the moment?
They have 4 at the moment. They have 4. Rash, Arbiter, and then Kim Woo and Tusk from Killer Instinct 2, who are the last non-boss characters who hadn't been brought back yet. So they've confirmed that April we're getting Mira, who is Maya's twin sister that gets resurrected as a vampire. She's a new character.
Yeah.
May is going to be Gargos, who obviously they've been setting up for a while, and also from Killer Instinct 2.
Yep.
And then June and July will also have new characters. They haven't said who. We know one of them is Ram. We don't know which. And then the other one we don't know, but it could be a new character. It could be Idol, the boss from Killer Instinct 1 that has not been brought back yet, which honestly, he was never a great character, so I would not be disappointed if he gets left on the cutting room floor. But, he's the last one, so they might as well throw him a bone.
Well, here's then the question, though, because I do at least know that, with Kim Woo, with Tusk, I did read that that was kind of the last of the remnant of past characters.
Yes.
Do you think this is the final season?
That is the million-dollar question. If this is the final season, then I think that, they'll go out on a high note. I think they've done, a great job up to this point. They've basically gotten everybody they're obligated to bring back. And, if Idol is the only one who gets left at the cutting room floor, then so be it. Mm-hmm. I'd be fine if this is the last season. But, if this season sells a lot and if that PC version really moves a lot of units, then, stranger things have happened.
That's true. Then you have the business impetus there.
Yeah.
Now, what you've played so far, what's your judgment on the soundtrack done by the new replacements since Mick Gordon couldn't do this season?
Yes, Atlas Plug and Cell Dweller. I spent a lot of time today listening to the 4 new tracks that were made available, the 4 character themes, and I like them. I'm not sure if they've quite hit the highs of the season 1 and 2 soundtracks, but I think they are on the right track, if not there yet. Tusk's theme, I think, is right up there with the old stuff. It's just a lot of real energy to it, with the heavy rock mixed with the Bulgarian singing choir and the kind of orchestral instruments. It really has a lot of power behind it, and I get really excited every time I listen to it in battle. So I think that one is definitely up there. Arbiter feels the same way a lot. Atlas Plug has worked on past Halo projects as a composer before, so it's not surprising that one turned out really well, and I'm really happy with that one. Rash is just a fun one. It's just a straight up hard rock Van Halen style remix of the old Battletoads theme, and it works well for the character. I don't know if it's as good as some of the old stuff, but it's a good listen. And then Kim Woo, I like it. I don't feel it's as strong as the others, but it's not a bad theme either. So
it's good to hear that they've at least done a good job.
Yeah, I don't know if they've hit the high points yet, but there's clearly some effort being put in there, and I think it's paying off for them. So, I'm down with it.
Well, and speaking of that music that Mick Gordon produced for those first 2 seasons, let's go over the list we had in the episode quickly, kind of just some extra thoughts. Again, thank you so much for all of the trivia that you provide. I mean, it made for lengthier descriptions of these songs that we had in the past, and that was certainly interesting when, just trying to remember all of it. In particular was there's 20 people and there's 5 nations and the 13-person choir in Gothenburg.
Yeah, Spinal's theme was very heavily produced.
Yeah, so let's talk about Spinal then. That's at number 10. That was one that I kind of had on the outside a little bit looking in, but this is one that you had a particular liking for. It's all right, we were going to get it in at least.
Yes, Warlord was one of the ones that when the game was first kind of coming out, that was one that really stuck with me just because of how well it paired with his original trailer, kind of the slow build up at the start, and then all the ominous chanting just building up to Spinal right at the end. Mm-hmm. And it's just so energetic a theme. It really kind of drives home the kind of otherworldly nature of this character and the theming of, this ancient warrior being resurrected from the grave. It really carries this strength to it, and it just works so well paired up with that character, that stage, pretty much everything about it. Considering how much went into that theme and how heavily produced it was, I felt like it would be a shame to not have that on the list somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point. And that was something interesting with a lot of these songs is Warlord in particular had a very long build up. And then many of these kind of go into the idle music. It kind of just changes the pace throughout the song, and it doesn't stick with one theme. So whereas most longer game music tunes would be like 5 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. I mean, these are 6, 7, 8 minutes long, and it's certainly made for a longer episode. But it just shows that there's a lot of complexity to the pieces, and you're going through some lull moments, and there takes some build up. But it kind of makes it's not really symphonic in a way, but you're kind of getting a mix of emotions there.
Yeah.
Number 9 was the Tiger Warrior, Jago's theme.
This was one of the first tracks that we heard from the game, originally in a little sampler that Mick put out shortly after the first E3 trailer. Mm-hmm. And, that's part of the reason, I think that's part of the reason why it stuck with so many people. Like the chanting, both by the lower pitched throat singing and then the higher pitched female voice. Mm-hmm. Like it really works to the song's benefit, and it's a worthy successor to the last 2 Jago themes, which were also pretty memorable. Yeah,
a lot of Eastern instruments that kind of work into play there, but also when when the guitars kick in, like it's heavy and it's really, really nice.
Yeah,
I think Hinamatum at number 8 was an interesting piece because it takes a different kind of chanting, and then when you add the trivia in there about just recording at PAX in Australia,
right,
and just that's a really cool aspect of it.
Yeah, Hinamatum has always had this really sort of melodic tone to it that I've really enjoyed. I'll throw that one on every once in a while when I'm just kicking back, trying to relax, and I think that is probably one of the better tracks on the Season 1 album, just for that reason. Like, compared to some of the other tracks, which are a little more intense, that one, it's a little more easygoing, but at the same time, it still has that very, kind of appealing sound to it, where you could just, even if you're not in the middle of, fighting on a cliffside like in game, you can throw it on and still be okay with it, enjoy listening to it casually.
Yeah, the flute really helps with that as well, just to kind of give it a little more calming sense.
Yeah.
Number 7, I'm Back to Rise, TJ Combo's theme.
I love this theme so much.
I really do too. And in hindsight, like if I kind of want to make this higher, but
yeah, I probably would have put it higher too in retrospect.
But then again, like this soundtrack is so good, so it'd be hard to make the argument. But it's a hype theme, is what it is.
Yeah, it's perfect workout music. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And for like the only song that really has rap in it, very fitting for the character and his motivations and the lyrics. It goes with the story.
TJ's themes have always had a strong hip-hop undercurrent to them, so this is kind of a worthy successor to Yo Check This Out and Feel the Power from KI 1 and 2 respectively. Mm-hmm. And then, cutting in at the end to the remix of Feel the Power, it gets me excited every single time, even when I know it's coming.
Yeah.
And, I had been familiar with Omega Sparks' work previously from the themes he did for the previous years of EVO. So hearing him, I pretty much instantly picked up on his voice and realized, oh, wait, I know who that is. And it was really a nice treat getting to hear him in this game. And something about this theme it really kind of drives things home and really has, an impact to it. It might be my favorite track on that Season 2 album, honestly.
Wow. There's another one that I'll talk about.
Yeah, like that, and what I assume is going to be the other one. Those are the 2, I think, standout tracks from that second album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I had them lower on the list at first, and then I moved them up, but I'm not sure I moved them up enough. But that's hindsight for you. Number 6, Touch Me and I'll Break Your Face. It's Orchid's theme.
This was the breakout track of Season 1 for me, because Orchid has always had those super catchy pop songs with KI Feeling and Play Hard in the last 2 games. And I would argue that those 2 are the most memorable tracks from each of one of those games respectively. So they'd have to have something that, lived up to that legacy. And I think they really delivered with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very catchy, and the vocals really work well. I like that one. Number 5, Village of Whispers. I think this is the other one from season 2 that like it sticks with you.
Yeah, Village of Whispers has this weird kind of ethereal sound to it that I just really enjoy. Then combined with, the kind of metal undercurrent to it, it creates this kind of weird fusion that actually works really well in its favor.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And yeah, the Japanese lyrics in there. It's a really nice blend.
Yeah, one of the things that mix songs, and now with Kim Woo's theme and Tusk's theme, Atlas Plug and Cell Dweller, they've always done a really good job of kind of carrying over the theming of wherever the place of origin for the character is, even in the case of, making sure it's in the same language. Like, one of the themes we didn't bring up in the countdown, Polemos, Agnos theme, was like 471 voices in a choir all singing Greek lyrics.
My goodness, yeah.
Going to that extent they really go the extra mile to make it sound as authentic as possible, and it really works as a result.
It's dedication, absolutely.
Yeah.
Number 4, you get Type 03 with Fulgor. Fulgor being one of basically the main antagonists in season 1, at least. The speed metal is really effective.
Yeah, the speed metal always seemed like it was a good fit for Fulgor. Like, it was a little bit lighter in the first 2 games, but I feel like this is kind of what they would have gone for back in the day if they had not settled on what they did end up. And they had some elements of that in, the Killer Instinct 2 theme for Fulgor, but this kind of ratchets it up, really gives it this industrial sound, which, fits for the character's robot, cyborg, whatever origins. Mm-hmm. And it just really works in its favor.
Number 3, Herald of Gargos for Omen. What a use of the chanting from Jago's theme, but just kicking it up several notches. And
yeah, just kind of the corruption almost of the existing theme, and then turning it into this thrash metal track is just kind of a brilliant move, as considering it's for kind of the theme for both Omen and Shadow Jago, who are both, kind of these corrupted versions of Jago in a way. So being able to channel that into the theme song and carry that over really just drives it home, and I really like that track a lot.
Yeah, I think it is excellent, and just a great use of all that theming, but the fullness of when the beat drops at the beginning, it's mind blowing. I love it.
Yeah.
The number 2, you have Inferno for Cinder's theme, and I think. Man,
that is the track of season 2, aside from I'm Back to Rise. Like, Cinder's theme was one of the most popular tracks from the original Killer Instinct soundtrack, and everybody was, of course, worried, okay, this is this beloved theme. You're really going to have to do its successor justice, and boy, did Mick and Little V. Mills deliver.
They killed it.
Yeah, obviously, they knew they were never going to be able to do something like in that style that could live up to that original theme. So they take it, they do a straight up remix and just jack it up to 11, and it pays off in spades. I remember before that theme dropped, Cinder was the next character on the list. Mick was dropping 2 or 3 different Vine previews of the theme, and even those I was listening to over and over and over again because I was so excited to hear the full version.
Yeah. And
they did not disappoint.
Yeah, I mean it's fantastic. As far as the honorable mentions go, I mean, any particular thoughts on Shatterhail for Glacius? You have Lycanthropy for Saberwolf, and then Temperance and Vengeance for Maya.
Glacius, Shatterhail, that was one of the tracks that it didn't really click with me the first couple times I heard it, but then it took a while, but kind of the techno-y elements to it kind of won me over after a while. It very much feels like an extension of what was established in KI 1 and 2. The KI 1 theme was more of a dance theme, but KI 2 had the same kind of grindy techno sound to it.
Yeah.
And, it fits for the character, kind of mixing his alien origins with kind of what you'd expect from a traditional snowy theme. And, it comes together spectacularly. And then lycanthropy, that's a weird one.
It is.
The way I've heard Mick describe it, the creation process is, imagine if, this orchestra was trying to play a theme for this character, this werewolf character, but then suddenly he went all feral and jumped into the orchestra pit and was wreaking havoc while the orchestra is trying to play around him. And I think that, with that image in mind, it makes a lot more sense and really has this kind of unhinged element to it that really fits for the character that's having this mental breakdown and going full-on werewolf as time goes on.
When you get the strings mixing in there and and all the instruments playing, it really has the feeling, and granted it may just also be because of the characterization and all, but it makes me think of the Order 1886. Just like that Victorian England, and you have the werewolf characters, the whatever they actually called them. I only played like an hour of that game.
Yeah,
but
I have not played any of that game, so I can't speak to it. But
it gives a really similar feeling, in my opinion, of that.
Yeah, I really love the haunting sound when, at the very end, it cuts into a remix of Tooth and Claw for the Idol theme, and it just really has this kind of unsettling vibe to it. Like, I would love to just strip that part out and play that at like a Halloween party or something in the background.
That'd be fitting, yeah. And I like the pace of Temperance and Vengeance for Maya's theme. Just kind of the Brazilian influences there. That just missed the cut.
Maya's original theme, like Temperance and Vengeance, is a straight up remix of her theme from Killer Instinct 2, which always had kind of a dance beat to it, but they really kind of pushed it above and beyond into full on, I could play this at a rave and nobody would care territory.
Yeah.
And it really works in that song's favor. Like, when Maya's trailer first came out, I remember spending a lot of time listening to that song playing underneath it. Even with all of the other sound effects layered on top, it was still really appealing to me. And I really like what they did with the OST mix of that, because they did change it a little bit between the in-game version and the final soundtrack version.
Oh, interesting. But at number one, we've talked about before on past shows, like the general criteria is it a good ass song? It goes on the list, and I don't think it gets much more than that. We can talk about history and what it means to the series and all that. It's a factor that plays in, but the instinct
Let's
at number
be honest,
one.
This was always going to be number one.
It has to be.
Yeah, Killer Instinct's theme is iconic, and I remember the first time I heard dun 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 at E3 2013, and my jaw just kind of slowly dropped. I'm like, oh no, they didn't. And then just that theme has continued to stick with me ever since that trailer first dropped. Like that initial riff will be forever burned into my brain as a result. Like the original themes were a little faster paced, a little, little more high pitched, but Mick just really pushed this into straight up metal territory, and it really works.
Yeah.
Like even when there was only like a minute preview of that song, I still felt like I think this might be the best version of this song, like without question. And that theme has continued to be, what my mind associates with Killer Instinct down to its very core, and there was no other choice for the number one pick.
I agree. It's perfect. It's so good, and it's taking off a classic and just making it the best version that they can make. It's
absolutely
wonderful. As far as some behind the scenes stuff goes for the episode, you helped me out a lot with the skit, and you turned it around so quickly. I'm like, oh, that's a winner idea.
I literally wrote that skit at stoplights while I was on my way home.
Oh, jeez, be careful.
It was a very long drive, and they were very long stoplights. So, like, every once in a while, I would just pause, turn on dictation. Okay, then Peter says, blah, 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 blah. And I say, yak, 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 yak. Oh, light's green. Another red light. Blah, blah,
yeah,
blah,
at least we didn't get lights green. That wouldn't have made sense for the dojo mode.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated it because not only was it genuinely funny, but it was much easier to edit than some of our past skits have been. And so it was simpler, but at the same time, it was really effective. And so I think that really worked well.
Yeah, I wanted to go for something a little simpler, because I knew we weren't going to have enough time to edit because this was Saturday. Or was it Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, that was the thing about this week. It was there were some things that popped up this weekend. I mean, Easter being one of them.
Yeah, that took out a lot of time.
And
but
we're recovering from travel, and so
yeah, I was gone basically all of that Sunday through the following Saturday. I did not get home until very late in the evening. And then I was at my parents' house on Sunday for Easter. So I didn't get home to my apartment until maybe 8 p.m. that Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was part of the reason why we had to really push and deliver that as quickly as possible. I had sent Peter all of the trivia for this episode over the last maybe a week before I had left.
Mm-hmm.
So we had something to work with on that front,
Yeah.
but we still didn't have kind of a skit or my thoughts on KI, and we needed to find a way to fill that space somehow. And I'm really glad that it came together as quickly as it did and as well as it did.
Yeah, and I was having a really rough weekend. Like, I didn't get to recording until Sunday night after family festivities, and like, I'm going to look back on that, after I continue to do more of these, like, that's unacceptable. Like, I can't be doing that. But fortunately, work allowed me to have Monday off, and so I was able to turn around the edit pretty quickly. We just waited for all the
we
pieces
both
to
just
come
got
together.
really lucky.
Yeah, no, it worked out nicely. I was really happy with how the episode worked. Again, I don't know, for new people who are listening, I don't know if they are willing to sit through a whole hour and 40 minutes of it because of the longer songs that kind of extend the duration of the episode, but I think it turned out a really solid episode overall, and
Absolutely.
It just would not have been possible without your help, so I really do appreciate that.
It is my genuine pleasure.
Well, there's no better to talk Killer Instinct. So wrap things up, I mean, anything else you're playing and besides Killer Instinct Season 3?
Well, that's been the big thing. I did a little bit of gaming while I was on vacation. A little bit of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle to kind of hype myself up for the Part 4 anime that's starting soon. It was also on sale, so I figured why not.
Yeah.
And then, some stuff with friends here and there, a little bit of Dive Kick, a little bit of Jackbox Party Pack.
Oh,
but
good times.
KI has been the main focus over the last couple of days, understandably so.
Understandably so. I've been playing some more Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I'm
Nice.
really digging that game and just going more into it, and the London setting works really well. And I totally understand why they've taken a break from that game, but there are a lot of changes that I really appreciate. After Unity relied too much on stealth, and like they'd introduced a new stealth engine, relied on it too much. You see, shades of that, but it doesn't, center missions around it. And one of the nice things that I've noticed while playing some of these missions is that, ones where you said like, look and try to locate this, person of interest, and if you spot them or make too much of a scene, like they'll try to run away because like you have to kidnap them. Or not, it's not necessarily kidnap missions, but some of these story missions in general, like a character tries to run away or they're fleeing on carriage or whatever, and you're too late to get them or whatever. Most Assassin's Creed games of the past will just stop the mission there, say desynced, reload, and try again. But for some of these ones, it's just like, okay, they're out of range, so now go locate them. Like, they're over there, locate them again. And just, continue the chase that way. And that's a really, really appreciated change, I think. You have a lot of just, automatic fails in missions in the past, and that got really frustrating for past Assassin's Creed games, but that's something they've seemed to mostly strip away in this game, and I really appreciate that. But overall, great
absolutely.
game. Great game.
I've been out of the Assassin's Creed game for a while, but, I might get back in for Syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think it's a good
apparently-
point. Yeah, you wouldn't be missing out
Yeah.
too much. The one thing, and maybe I'll do a rant on this someday, but one of the things I really appreciated starting the Assassin's Creed series was the present day story. And at the end of Assassin's Creed 3, it almost seems like, by comparison, because they established characters and there was a whole thread going, cliffhangers in these games, and it was a thing in addition as a complement to the main historical part of the game. But in the game since, it's almost felt like it's an afterthought. So I think if you haven't played a game since Assassin's Creed 3, haven't played a game in that series, you won't be missing much. I mean, in some of these games, they keep bringing back, like, hey, it's Rebecca and Sean. You remember them, right? Okay, Here they are. And it's really weird to see them in, like, this modern engine rendering when you're just kind of used to how it looked back in 2009 with Assassin's Creed 2. So, yeah, I wouldn't say, you haven't been missing too much. They'll throw in a couple characters that they've brought up, but they're really just ancillary.
I'm sure I can find, some wiki online to fill in the blanks.
That's a good point.
Maybe I'll get back in to like play Black Flag and Syndicate or something.
Black Flag and Syndicate would be the two you got to do. And then if you really like Black Flag, Rogue is also a really good place to go because Rogue is it's basically Black Flag 2.
I'll think about it. Also, it looks like my code for Hyperlight Drifter activates at midnight tonight, so I may have to tear myself away from the rampant ultra comboing to give that a shot.
Very possible. We may also have a Final Fantasy 15 demo tonight if news rumors are to be believed. So it's going to be an interesting week, starting to pull together this news stories early. PlayStation 4.5 or PlayStation 4K talk has really ramped up, and I didn't want to talk about it too much, but there's a new NeoGAF post today that has been bombing the website and can't avoid that any longer. You have this Final Fantasy 15 event. It should be a fun week. We're going to be talking Mass Effect, and that's a really nice soundtrack. That whole series really, but the first one really grabs your attention as far as the soundtrack goes in particular. So lots of fun to be had as we get back in another cycle over here at Tempo Control. But Luke, thank you so much for joining me on this post-show Spoilercast, talking Killer Instinct.
It is my genuine pleasure. Now I have to get back to figuring out how the heck I'm supposed to do Tusk's canceled properly. This is going to take a while.
And I'll get back to the dojo mode.
Yeah, you may want to turn on combo assist, just saying.
Probably will. I'm sure it is easy to find in the menu system there.
Yep.
Well, thanks for listening. I'm Peter. We're out.